We're learning more today about the suspect behind the shooting rampage at Fort Hood. Nadal Malik Hassan is a lifelong Muslim, and his name appears on radical internet postings.
And the government already had him under suspicion several months ago. Here's reporter Jennifer Wishon.
An Army psychiatrist, Major Nadal Malik Hassan, was trained to help soldiers in distress, but he had been on the radar of law enforcement officials for months. In an internet post at least 6 months ago, Hassan compared suicide bombers to GIs who save other troops by throwing themselves on a grenade. Hassan apparently carried out the attacks on his own, but the possibility that he was acting on behalf of some radical group has not been ruled out.
It's one of those things that he obviously went to kill a lot of people and commit suicide, maybe in his own mind that he's saving future lives.
The 39-year-old was scheduled to be deployed overseas later this month, but his family says he had hired a lawyer to get out of it. This surveillance video obtained by CNN is from a 7-Eleven store near Fort Hood that Hassan reportedly frequented. Here, just hours before the shootings, he's seen wearing traditional Muslim garb. Hassan was reportedly going to work with Muslims in the armed forces.
He's going to be kind of the caretaker for Muslim soldiers, and sometimes when Muslim soldiers have a rift between what they're doing and their faith, and that person who is a leader needs to kind of quell some of those fears and kind of help them through that process.
Hassan reportedly hoped President Obama would pull troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan and argued with his military colleagues who supported the wars. Before arriving at Fort Hood, Hassan worked at Walter Reed Army Medical Center for 6 years as an intern, resident, and fellow in disaster and preventative psychiatry. There, he reportedly received a poor performance evaluation and, as an intern, had some difficulties with patients that required extra counseling and supervision. His cousin told Fox News he believes Hassan was fed up with being teased about his heritage.
It was the harassment that I think was what got to him, was him being referenced from his Middle Eastern ethnicity, even though he was born and raised here and went to high school here in Northern Virginia.
Law enforcement is searching Hassan's home and looking for clues as to what led the soldier to allegedly kill his comrades. A ceremony to honor the dead is being planned at the Fort Hood Air Base. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Well, CBN News terrorism analyst Eric Stackelbach is with us. Eric, it appears that his motivations were either religious or political. Does it seem that way to you?
Well, Gordon, let's look at the evidence we have so far. We know that Mr. Hassan, according to the imam of his mosque in Maryland, was in the mosque every day, 7 days a week, and was, quote, a devout Muslim. We know that he praised suicide bombers online. We know that he railed against the U.S. aggressors in the Middle East, was fiercely opposed to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We see him in surveillance video wearing traditional Islamic garb, and the U.S. military has not ruled out that he was acting on behalf of some, quote, radical group. I've covered a lot of these cases for CBN News, Gordon, over the past few years, and I can tell you, in these kind of cases where there's smoke, there's usually fire. In the case of Mr. Hassan, there's a whole lot of smoke right now.
It does start to beg the question with this kind of evidence out there, and then certainly the trail on the internet. What in the world was this guy doing getting shipped out to be in active combat?
It seems like someone in the higher echelons of the U.S. military absolutely dropped the ball here. There were warning signs for months, actually years, Gordon. If you look back a few years ago when Mr. Hassan was in graduate school, he was actually reprimanded for proselytizing to patients and coworkers, trying to convert them to Islam. Of course, we had these postings about 6 months ago praising Islamic suicide bombers. Some of his colleagues at Fort Hood have gone on record as saying, hey, we took this to higher officials. Nothing was done about it. Big mistake here. And as the investigation progresses, you might see some heads roll.
Is our military a target now for jihadists? Are they trying to infiltrate the military in order to do this?
Yes, on both fronts. Number one, this is the dream of al-Qaeda and jihadist groups to actually have a radical jihadist plant working from within, inside the military. We had a case a few years ago where a member of the National Guard, a guy by the name of Ryan Anderson, was convicted for passing along or trying to pass along information to al-Qaeda. When it comes to the U.S. military, they are the prime target for jihadists, especially in every homegrown case that I investigate here, Gordon, there's two things, two common threads. Number one, they want to strike out against the U.S. military. They see the U.S. military as the symbol of crusader imperialist aggression. And number two, they want to strike out against Israel and the Jews. What we see here, obviously, is the U.S. military, unfortunately, bore the brunt of this man's jihadist rage.
Well, Eric, thanks for the analysis. Our
Thank you,
prayers
Gordon.
certainly go out to the families of those who lost loved ones in this horrible tragedy. And we need to pray that we'd wake up to the threat we face.